Good morning, everyone, and welcome to week number 6. Wah! All right. So I'm really happy with how things are going so far. Everybody's getting work in gradually, so that's good. So I want to do a little housekeeping real quick. So emails. A lot of you have been sending me blank emails with attachments, and that is not uh, what we've practiced, right? I gave you the professional email format so that when you send me emails, right, you use the format. Yeah. So whenever you're sending me an email, make sure and use that professional email format, right? Because emails between you and I are professional emails. Yeah? So please do not send me any more blank emails with attachments. Send me instead professional emails with attachments. Yeah? I think that every cover letter I get will have that now. All right. Grading pass throughs. I will do a grading pass through on Wednesday to catch everybody up with what I've got. Um, and then on Sunday, this coming Sunday next week, um, I will grade the resumes and cover letters and get those grades out to you. Um, Also, I'm going to be breaking the participation grade into 2 columns so that I can show you that I've got your reading responses looked through. I'll break that into 2 columns and we'll check it. We'll check the reading responses at midterm. Um, if you want to get feedback on your resume before your cover letter is due, please send me a specific question via email, remember, professional email, and I will do my best to get back to you on those. Um, all right, so if that's if you have any questions about anything else, feel free to let me know, and we will get through. So let's look at what we've got on the menu for this week. So if we look at week 6, that's February 11th, right? Lecture 6 and Kagan Chapter 3. You're already sitting through Lecture 6 right now. Congratulations on being awesome. Kagan Chapter 3, right, is Chapter 3, Social Sciences 1. So, in Kagan Chapter 3, I want you to remember as you read that Kagan is a social scientist, right? This might be perhaps why social sciences has 2 chapters dedicated to it, right? Because Kagan is a social scientist. I want you to pay attention to how culture is defined. All right. So right from the very beginning, he begins talking about culture, right? And I want you to pay attention to how he defines that, right? Um, Secondly, I think it would be good if you would answer these 2 questions, and these will be your writing prompts. So the 2 questions I have uh, are: what status hierarchies do you see in your world? And should everything that receives public funding have a measurable benefit? So after reading chapter 3, you should be able to answer those questions very easily. Those are your 2 writing prompts. Um, yeah, let me know if you have questions on those. You should be able to understand them fairly well after having read the chapter. The cover letter. We'll move right along. So for the cover letter, I have uploaded a friendly guide. It's in the course content section. You see course content, cover letter guide, right? So this has key elements of the cover letter. So this lays things out in a lot of the same ways that I laid out the professional email, right? So the cover letter is usually the first item an employer reads from you, right? They read this usually even before they have your resume, but they also uh, probably have screened you so that your resume was looked at by the machine before they ever read your cover letter. Yeah. So this guide is put out by University of Washington. It's a decent guide, and it'll help you uh, to sort of make sure that you're doing a self check and making sure you've got all of these elements in your cover letter when you write it. You should definitely, however, make sure that you're not stopping at just this, right? Because this is sort of a guide for making sure that your cover letter is complete rather than a comprehensive guide for writing it. Um, so in standard letter format, right, you have information about you. So this is a block right in the left-hand margin of your paper toward the top. Yeah, name, current address, and telephone number. Please make sure that they can access you by your telephone number. Don't give them an old one, right? Date, you should include that as you would with any business letter. And then the contact person's name, title, employer, and address. So, as much as possible, try to find out who the person in charge of hiring is and address the letter to them. Sometimes it will be a hiring committee. It's okay to say hiring committee, right? So once you find that out, make sure that you're offering the appropriate salutation, right? Dear Mr. Johns, dear Ms. Smith, dear prospective employer, if there is no contact name, right? With the Ms., Miss, Mrs. thing, right? MS dot is the one that you will use if you are not sure whether or not the person you are contacting is female or is married, but you do know that it's a female name, right? Now there are some tricky names where you might just go with Doctor or Dear Professor Employer, prospective employer, things like Kelly, even sometimes Kim, right? With certain surnames, yeah. So if you're not sure, prospective employer is much safer than addressing a woman as Mr. or a man as Ms., right? Okay, in the opening paragraph, tell how you learned about the position. They will be interested in knowing which elements of their job advertising are working. So tell them how you learned about the position. Tell them you're interested in that position, right? So my name is Anthony Albright. I am interested in your position for content writer. I heard about this position on Indeed and decided to apply. Blah, blah, blah. Right? So tell them you are interested in their position, right? And how you found out about that position. Middle paragraph gives a summary of your background and critical skills that make you qualified for that position. So you need to narrate your resume for them, right? The resume is a list of things that you can do, right? Or experiences you've had. Now you need to narrate what makes those things add up to make you qualified for that position. Second middle paragraph, demonstrate your persuasive skills or soft skills, right? So you may have skills that don't directly apply to this position, but that you can persuade the reader that makes sense with that. So, for example, I was a parachute rigger in the Army, which doesn't necessarily have direct uh, translation to many jobs in the civilian world. However, it says a few things about me that I might translate in that second paragraph by saying things like, as a parachute rigger in the U.S. Army from 2001 to 2005, I packed over 1,000 parachutes. I rigged loads for drop. I was responsible for millions of dollars worth of taxpayer equipment and the lives of over 1,000 soldiers. In that time, I jumped 156 times, and each time it was scary, but I did so knowing that my sacrifice was worth the effort. Right? Something like that is a invaluable piece on your resume and cover letter, because it gives the employer some flavor, some information about you that they couldn't otherwise get from a resume or a cover letter. Yeah. Your contact information in closing, right at the end, you want to talk about your availability for the job, right? Where you can be contacted, how to contact you for an interview. You want to indicate that you anticipate their response to your letter, right? I look forward to an interview. Um, Thank them, right, for their time and consideration of your application, right? And make sure that you close it nicely like that. Now, they've offered you some paper considerations, right? They want you to use heavy paper. Uh, Same paper on the resume, cover letter, and envelopes. If you're actually printing, that's a great idea, right? Again, you want the resume and cover letter to seem like they go together. Yeah? Error prevention. So, if the employment ad has direction, make sure that you follow that direction. Proofread. Look for spelling and formatting errors. Make sure the recipient's name and the company name are spelled and titled correctly. Proofread again. Have another person proofread. Be sure there are no errors of fact, right? Sign in blue or black ink, right? There are many ways to sign the cover letter, and we'll actually go into one of them if you're using a Mac. If you're on a PC, you might want to check YouTube, right? Keep a copy of the cover letter and resume for your records, right? If you're sending unique resumes and cover letters to each job employer, you're going to want to keep track of what you said to them, right? So then follow up with a phone call about 5 days after you expect that your resume was delivered, right? Again, this is if you're applying to an employer through the internet, which most of you probably will be. This is less likely to be a thing that you do. However, if you feel like you haven't received a response email or something like that, make sure that you do follow up. Layout and design, again, this is standard cover letter format. Keep cover letter to 1 page, right? Set margins at 1.5 inches. This is default for most word processors. Simple to read, font style 10 to 14 point. Again, you're going to want to use a serifed font. All three of these are serifed fonts. Yeah. Use boldface, italics, all caps, and underlining, but don't overdo it, right? I would say don't use underlining, right? Because your scanner may not know how to handle underlined text. Yeah, remember the scanners have trouble with lines because it's not a character on the keyboard. So I would say boldface, italics, and all caps in order to differentiate different pieces of text. Yep. Tailor each cover letter to one specific position. Use industry jargon specific to your career field, especially if this jargon is located in the job ad. Yes. Identify the employer's keywords and use them. Yes. Make all statements positive. Check the tone by asking yourself if each sentence leaves a positive impression. Show originality but not cuteness. Use action verbs and phrases, right? I participated. I purchased. I engaged in, right? Sound determined and confident, but not desperate. Yeah? This is more, you need me. then I need you, right? Style. Organize context in a reasonable and logical order. Use correct grammar. Keep sentences short. Keep paragraphs short. Use short words and simple language. Make every word count. Punctuate using commas, dashes, and periods. Again, I'd say leave out the dashes. Content. Focus on the employer's need for a worker rather than your need for a job. Tell how your skills and personal qualities match the employer's needs. Focus on what you can do for the employer and how you contribute to the organization. Show how you've researched the company and double check those facts. And then be specific and avoid general statements, right? You don't want them to think that they are reading a letter that you've sent to everyone, right? You want them to think, wow, they really care about getting our specific position. And they wrote a letter specifically for us because they want that to happen. Yeah? If you do that, they will be much more likely to hire you, right? Because no employer wants to know that they're part of some blast of applications, even if they are, right? So, um, yeah, that pretty much covers the cover letter. Make sure that cover letter and resume always go together, right? So look back at what you did in your resume. If there are things that you need to correct, make sure that you correct those before working on your cover letter, right? Um, and then just do your best and send that to me, preferably by Friday, so that I can get it in the grade book on Sunday when I do my next pass through on the grade book. All right. So again, the writing prompts are the two questions that I had from Kagan chapter 3, right? What status hierarchies do you see in your world? And should everything that receives public funding have a measurable benefit, right? And if you read the chapter, those questions should become self evident. Yeah? All right, that's all I've got. Um, have a good week and let me know if you need anything else from me. Farewell.